Hey guys, how's it going? And welcome back to another episode. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about why most Americans end up hating living in Mexico. And they just go back home, because why would you stay here if you hate it? So, we're going to be talking about a bunch of things, as to why you might also end up hating living in Mexico or not. You might, just eventually learn how to deal with life out here in Mexico and, before you know it, you're Mexican yourself. But there's a lot of people out there that, for whatever reason, in fact, many of the reasons that we're going to be talking about today and, discussing in depth are the reasons that a lot of people end up, moving or leaving Mexico and never coming back, or they just come out here with one idea, and before they know it, they end up hating Mexico. They come out here with one idea of what Mexico is, and then when they come out here, it's not that, and then, obviously they just end up hating everything about it, and, they end up going on their way, whether they move on to another country or they move back to their own country. So, let's start off with a few reasons here. One of the real reasons, one of the main reasons, there's a lot of reasons, but one of the real reasons I think that a lot of people struggle out there is the fact that they themselves have never had any kind of struggle themselves. They never really had to deal with any kind of, hardship on a regular basis in order for them to, be able to deal with, moving to a new country and dealing with all the things that come with living in a country like Mexico. Which, again, for the average person out there that might live a life of struggle or have gone through a lot of struggle or have dealt with a lot of, hardship and difficult things, one of the things that I've noticed since I've been living out here is that a lot of people that really have a good time of or have a better time of handling living in Mexico are people that have a military background or that have traveled the world or have seen the world, people that have seen things, have been through things, or on the other hand, just people that, again, in their own country have had a lot of struggle, and they've had to kind of like work themselves all the way up from the ground up, and have dealt with just about everything. So basically, life out here in Mexico is pretty easy in comparison to the things that they've seen and they've done. But there's a lot of people that have never, struggled. And in fact, there's a lot of people out there that have never eaten a cold hot dog out of a package, or, even had to, take a dump, in the middle of the woods or what have you, and it shows. It really does show when they come out here, and the way that they look at things, and the expectations that they have, and the wants and the needs and the desires that they have. And look, and at the end of the day, Mexico is a developed country, a first world country, and you can have basically just about anything you want, but it's going to cost you money. And a lot of people are slowly starting to realize that, their dollar isn't worth as much. The Mexican economy is a lot better and different than what it was 10, 15, 20, 25 years ago. And, so many variables have changed. And now all of a sudden, you coming to Mexico is like you going to Europe in a sense, and it's not going to be much of a change when it comes to certain things, assuming you want a certain lifestyle. But, at the end of the day, and like I've talked about many times on this channel, if you're coming out here for the right reasons, you're coming out here, to be part of the community, you're coming out here to live with the people, be part of the culture, learn the culture, assimilate, perhaps start a business, contribute to the economy, contribute, in other ways, maybe community service, whatever, but just, be part of your community, be part of everything that's around you, then you're going to be totally fine. Because what happens with a lot of people as well is that they stay in their bubbles. They just come out here and they stay in their, bubble of just them and their few close friends, or, them and their expats, and they never even, walk out of their house, walk out of the neighborhood. Many of them want to live in privadas, or, basically, walled off neighborhoods, private neighborhoods. There's nothing wrong with that. Again, I got really good friends that live in these areas, that are, basically a copy paste of what you would find back home, with the HOA, right? and all that good stuff that comes with it. And so if you want to live in a gated community, if you which is maybe surrounded by a lot of expats, as opposed to other Mexicans, or you want to live in only expat only enclaves and only have expat friends and just or foreigners, this can go to doesn't matter who you are, where, but foreigners, basically you just want to stick to your foreigner friends, foreigner circles, bubbles, and so on and so forth. Yeah, it's not going to work. And then on top of that, you are also within your own bubble of the things that are going on in your former country, and you never even give Mexico a chance, and all you care about are the things that are going on in a country in which you don't live in anymore. And again, there's nothing wrong with keeping up with current events and what's going on back home and so on and so forth. Trust me, I do it. I think most of us, we can't not do it. But at the end of the day, it's one thing is keeping up with current events, and another thing is being obsessed to the point where you're still living there, and you don't care about anything that's happening locally or happening within your own community or happening around you or happening within your neighborhood. So those are the things that eventually as well end up getting people to leave and just hate Mexico, because basically they end up just coming out here maybe to for financial relief, to just have a better financial situation, and not spend as much money as they would back in the USA. But then guess what, then they have to live in another country with Mexicans, and there's a Mexican culture, and when they go to the grocery store, they're not going to have their brand of Jimmy Dean sausage or whatever it is that they're into, or yeah, you know what I mean? And so they just cannot deal with it. They cannot deal with, either, having a replacement, which within that country, just making their own sausage, or, perhaps even ordering something from Amazon or going to Walmart or what have you. They don't want to do any of that, or they hate that they have to do that. And they hate the fact that, why is everything in this Mexican store Mexican,
Bruh.
or whatever it is. And so, and they just don't want to assimilate in that sense. And so because of all that, they end up hating it. And so because they end up hating it, they just end up going back home, or again, if they stay here, they are that bitter, grumpy old person, that is just constantly complaining about everything. And part of the complaining about everything, there's a lot of people that, again, they're used to maybe the United States or, Canada or some parts of Europe where, they can be tattletales, where they can be, I don't know, Karens, I don't know what else to say, where they can just complain and get their way by complaining, and do very bad and horrible things to other people and think that they can get away with it. Like, let's say, not pay rent and then play a victim in order to get some sympathy, and then trying to falsely accuse individuals out there of whatever in order to just get their way, or other things. There just happens, a lot of the behaviors that you could get away with in your own country, you're not going to be able to get away with out here. So when a lot of people end up coming out here and they exude that horrible behavior out here, they quickly realize that the police don't care. A lot of times you're the one that's committing a crime, and I could go on and on. And the reality is that they just refuse to accept that. They refuse to assimilate that. A lot of times, again, they come out here and they know they're in another country, they know everything, but again, they want to call the police on everyone, because hey, they have a loud noise. This guy has the wrong color on his house, whatever. And you can't do that in Mexico. It's just not going to fly. In fact, you can't even, like, again, one of the things about living in a private gated community is, again, the fact that the police are not really allowed to enter. As far as I know, these private, privadas, these private gated communities, that's what they're there for. It's like the privacy, meaning that, we're in the U.S. or in other places, you might be used to having, these private gated communities, these wealthy communities, these, whatever, these country clubs, whatever they are. And, you could call the cops anytime, any place, and they come out there and they got you because you're the wealthy individual, and so the cops are there to do whatever. But the reality is that out here it doesn't work like that at all. And so when you're in one of those communities, again, remember we've talked about it in previous episodes as to what authority really is out here, and with the capacity of authority, the capacity of the police, the capacity of all this stuff. And so when you're basically living in a gated community, they can't just walk in there. You can't just call them. The people that own or are in charge of their gated community might not allow the police to go in there, because now it's infringing on not just the privacy of the individuals that live there, but also of the actual gated community, the place itself. And so unless the gated community, calls them, or unless you yourself have a major emergency, and, again, like you have to call like an ambulance or a firefighter or whatever, unless it's like a certain super insane instant like that, most of the time, 99% of the time, if you got like a gripe with your neighbor, a landlord, whatever it is, a dog, no, there's no way that the cops are going to be allowed to enter. And so, a lot of things, that people just don't understand, not just with that, but with other things, the things that I've talked about multiple times on my show, where I'm talking about whether it's taxes or business and the licensing and the, your rights and immigration and, the visa and all this other stuff. And so, a lot of people just refuse to understand that. A lot of people in their minds, they leave their countries that are very authoritarian and tyrannical, and then they come out here to Mexico, and then they try to replicate that. They get upset because, they had to take a very difficult route to get immigration status, to get their residency, and then they see a bunch of other people out there being able to get residency like that, or or other people like me or what have you, telling people, hey, look, you can get residency very easily, very quickly, as opposed to this more difficult route, or whatever it is. Again, look, hey, look, this is how you can conduct business. Hey, look, this is how, things really work with XYZ. And so there's a lot of people out there that they hate the fact that Mexico, their government, their bureaucracy, their, the way they do things, the laws, the rules, the regulations, permits, all that stuff works very differently out here. It is not to say that you do not need permits for certain things, or that you do not need licensings for certain things. Of course you do. You still need certain licenses, certain permits, certain, rule, you got to follow certain rules and regulations, there's a bunch of all that, but it's not what it's not what it used to be, again, in your country. It's not what it is, what you think it is, meaning, when people ask me, hey, can I drive in Mexico with my U.S. driver's license? I'm like, yes, of course you can. Oh, but in the U.S. you get arrested and you this and that. It's like, no, but out here it's valid. You can use it. It's totally fine. You're not going to get in trouble. And not just your license, but again, even people ask me, like, hey, do I need a fishing license? No. What are you a commercial fisherman? Unless you're a commercial fisherman, then the answer is no. And just things like that. You know what I mean? It's just, I can go on and on. And so in the U.S. or Canada or what have you, where you need, permits, and you got to follow all these rules and regulations, and there's all these laws, and it's just so much red tape to just, again, go fishing or whatever it is you're going to do. And then they come out here and they don't see any of that, and then they're just trying to create it out of nothing. Or even when it comes to like taxes, we talked about it multiple times. Look, it's a very rare case in which you as a foreigner are going to be paying taxes. Again, unless you're conducting business in Mexico, there's just like absolutely no way for you to even pay taxes. There's no like rule, regulation, there's no avenue, there's no portal, there's no nothing for you to pay taxes. And the question is, pay taxes on what? Again, if you're a foreigner and you're living out here, you're already paying taxes on everything, which is IVA. Again, I've talked about it multiple times, where you pay your just regular tax, your basic sales tax, that you would have everywhere. Again, if you're buying a property, you're paying a lot of tax. If you're buying a car, or you're buying whatever you're buying, you're going to pay tax. You're taxed. You're paying tax. It's a very different tax system here than it is where you come from. And so if you come out here and you're upset because there's like a digital nomad, doing their thing and they need to be taxed, it's like, yeah, okay, well, taxed on what? Can you please tell me what or how? The exact thing that they're doing that needs to be taxed. What, working in cyberspace? That's not a taxable thing. It's not. Look it up. And again, they work for an American company or a foreign company. That's not a taxable thing. So again, I can go on and on. It's not just taxes, but so many other things. And then a lot of these individuals, they come out here with a certain mentality, and then they're trying to implement that mentality out here again, like they commit a crime or they do something that they're not supposed to do, and then they call the police in order to mitigate, trying to blame the other party, only to quickly realize either A, nothing's going to happen, or B, maybe they're the ones that are going to end up getting in trouble. So, and I could just go on and on. It's just, it's very comical, to say the least, to see a lot of these things, just play out with a lot of these people that come out here with a completely, twisted, different idea of what it is to live in Mexico. And, what it is to live in Mexico is that you're living in reality. I don't know what else to say. Living in Mexico, just like living in most of the world out there, you're living in reality. And a lot of people, unfortunately, are not living in reality anymore. And then they come out here to Mexico, and then they think that they can live in their fantasy, and then they quickly realize that it's not going to work out here. It's like, sorry, and yeah. They get hit in the face with reality. And in fact, again, it's like Mike Tyson says, most people have a plan until they get punched in the face. A lot of people, they come out here with one idea, one thought as to, one plan as to how things are going to be, how things are going to go, and then they get hit with reality. They get hit in the face, they get punched in the face, and then all of a sudden they don't have a backup plan, they don't have anything, to really, lean on or what have you, and then they have to like really figure it out, and it's not pretty because now you're in another country, and there's no sympathy out here for poor decisions, because out here everyone is in the same boat, and everyone has to figure it out, and there's no government help, there's no kind of things like that, as to where an authority figure, government figure is going to just come out of nowhere and save you. So a lot of people just don't understand that. They never want to comprehend that. And to move on to the next thought here, a lot of people, what they really end up happening, what really ends up happening with them, what really ends up going on with them, is that there's a lot of people out there in today's world that they confuse comfort with freedom, and comfort is not the same thing as freedom. And if you want comfort, the more comfort you want, the less freedom you're gonna get, and that goes no matter where you live. But in the USA and Canada and Europe, they give you so much comfort. They make it so easy, so comfortable for so many people. And so whether you see it or not, and so what happens is that when you do end up coming out here to Mexico, to a country outside of your own country, all of a sudden you realize how difficult things really are, and things are not comfortable at all, in many cases, and there's no comfort. There's no comfort from the government, from an authority figure. There's no comfort, of any kind, but there's tons of freedom. And so for a lot of people out there that all they want is freedom, they want real freedom, they understand what freedom is. They come to a country like Mexico, they go to another country. There's tons of countries out there around the world in which you can go and experience real freedom. And so those people, they don't have any kind of problem assimilating anywhere, in any of these places. And so that's the problem. A lot of people, they confuse comfort with freedom. And so look, it doesn't mean that you cannot be very comfortable and also very free. Don't get me wrong, okay? You can also do that. But the reality is that there's a super fine line between comfort and freedom. And in most cases, for most people, in most situations, and the reality of what life is, the more freedom you really want, okay, the more comfort it's going to cost you. And again, you got to define these words for yourself. What does comfort mean to you? What does freedom mean to you? Okay, not what these are, words are defined for you as. Remember, you got to think for yourself, all right? Which a lot of people lack the ability to do these days. So again, if you don't have the ability to even think for yourself, again, you're going to also struggle, have a hard time out here, and all that good stuff. But if you do have the ability to think for yourself, you do have things like common sense, then you're going to be totally fine out here. You're going to love life. And again, going back to the comfort over freedom, understanding that the more freedom you want, the more freedom you're going to get, but then it's going to cost you that comfort. Okay, so but the more comfortable you want to be, the less freedom you're going to have. So a lot of people come out here and they want a very comfortable life, and they want to live again, a life very similar to what they had in the USA, or better, many times a better life. You can definitely have and afford a better life in Mexico, but it's going to cost you. All right, that comfort is going to cost you, and most of the time it's going to cost you that freedom, and that's the reality of it. And so you need to figure out what that all means to you, and you got to realize that when you come out here, you do have freedom. In the US and in Canada and in Europe, unfortunately, you just don't have that freedom. You got tons of comfort. Remember, it's like a scale, and each country also provides these things. Okay, comfort versus freedom. So, in a country, like Canada, US, many places in Europe and other places like that, the scale of comfort, okay, is very high, meaning it outweighs the freedom. So they basically trick you into telling you, look, you're going to have to give up some of your freedoms, or some of the things that you hold the most dear. You're going to have to give them up. You're going to have to give up all that stuff to the government. You're going to have to give up the fact that, again, your freedom, again, that freedom comes in many ways, again, for comfort. So for example, all these laws that pass, that ban things like, whether it's straws, or you need a fishing license or permits or whatever it is you need, it's all because other people, all right, wanted, for, something to be done. They wanted to feel comfortable. They wanted to feel better about themselves. So they're like, okay, if we give, if we force people to get a fishing license, for any kind of fishing, well, then I'm going to feel better that they're not going to go out there and take all the fish. As opposed to just having sustainable fishing practices that say, hey, look, you can fish whatever you want, but if you catch, XYZ lobster and XYZ part of the season, then that's illegal. So you don't be doing that. So don't be catching, certain lobster, certain this, certain that, certain whatever, what I mean? Things that are endangered or not in season or what have you. That's totally fine. What I mean? But not the fact that you have to go to the extreme of having to pay so much money, just so that you can feel better about something. So again, there's many, 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 many ways in which you can, dissect this. Okay. But long story short, in the US, in Canada, many of these places, you're trading away all of that freedom that you have for a good cause, for a good reason, supposedly, right? For comfort. Okay. Whether it's a comfortable couch, and having a 38 billion inch TV screen, and all of it is on debt. The fact that you might be able to, very comfortably, do whatever you want, even if you're driving your electric vehicle and you're going out fishing with your fishing licenses, whatever it is you're doing, all the taxes you're paying, all the things you're doing, it making you feel good and making you feel like a great human. But hey, it's costing you freedom. Now, for some people, they don't see it like a cost at all. They think that they're the freest ever, the most free people on earth. But the reality is that it really does cost you your freedom, because when you come to a country like Mexico, that's when you quickly realize, oh, these people are actually free, because these people don't have to follow any rules, any regulations. They can just do whatever they want. They can fish whenever they want. They can basically do what they want. And even if they do break a law, they can just pay a police officer or a government official off, and they're good to go. And they don't understand that, and they get upset over that, and then that drives them crazy in a sense, because they want some law and order in a place that doesn't have law and order in a sense, and they don't understand that law and order is really bringing you less freedom for comfort. What comfort? You know what I mean? So this is a very long and complicated issue, but the reality is that one of the things a lot of people struggle with, okay, is that, the fact that they just will never, ever, be able to understand, the way that things are done here and the way that things were done back home. Now, another thing that, I can talk about as to, why a lot of people just end up hating living in Mexico and struggle living in Mexico, I can simply say, oh, learning Spanish. Sure. You know what I mean? But I think that's a very obvious thing. I think that, for those out there that, I mean, look, you don't necessarily have to learn Spanish and be, a Spanish teacher, a Spanish connoisseur, whatever. But, at the end of the day, just to the point where you need to, at the very least, learn a little bit so that you can learn how to communicate and just get along and just better really understand everything. And, even at the most basic level, you're doing a great job. And that's it. And it's like just giving it a try. You might only know 10 Spanish words, but you make an attempt. You're always, again, living with the locals, have, friends that might be neighbors. You're constantly within the community. You're not in your bubble. You're not in your, foreigner and expat only, enclaves. Whenever you need a service or you need something, instead of just asking your expat friends, a lot of times what you do is you just, go out in the neighborhood and find it yourself, hey, whatever. But, again, yeah, I'm sorry, I went off on a tangent talking about something else. But at the end of the day, the whole Spanish thing is kind of like a moot point. Obviously, if you learn it, great. If you don't, it doesn't matter. Because at the end of the day, we're talking about why people hate and struggle living in Mexico. I know people, like we know people that live in the USA and they barely know English and they're the happiest people on the planet and they've been living in the US for 20 years. So you can live in Mexico, an eternity and basically barely know the language and you'll be happy as hell. You know what I mean? It's probably to a benefit. Some people out there don't even want to know what's going on around them, and this helps them by not knowing the language. But so that's like a moot point. But the reality is that everything else that goes with it, which is not necessarily the language thing, but just the fact that they just, people that refuse to really, embrace, the amazingness of what Mexico is. And look, I get it. It's not for everybody. But I mean, if you're going to be thinking about moving abroad, no matter if it's Mexico or whatever country you're going to move to, you better be ready to embrace the culture, embrace living there, embrace everything. Whether you're going to Thailand or you're coming to Mexico or you're going to Costa Rica or you're going to wherever you're going, you know what I mean? It doesn't matter, Bali, whatever, you just better make sure that you're ready to deal with all that, to deal with whatever it comes with all that. It's not going to be where you come from. And if you want to be where you come from, then just find a better location where you're at. And if you're concerned about, oh, I'm losing my freedoms, oh, I'm losing my blah, 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 it's so hard, well, then fight for it. I don't know what else to say. Otherwise, just realize that you're going to probably hate life. You're going to struggle a lot if you end up moving to another country for the wrong reasons and you don't, understand that moving to another country is basically, you're changing your whole life. You're basically taking on not just an adventure, but you're basically, again, starting a completely brand new chapter. You might as well be writing a brand new book. All right. That's really what it means to move to another country, to live in another country, to really, do all that. And most people don't want to do that. The whole thought of that seems like a great idea at first. But once they're really in it, they're still reading their old book, and, they can't, even begin to think about writing a new book. And that's the thing. I mean, when I came out here, just like a lot of you guys that, really, really have a success story of living out here, you come out here with a clean slate and you're writing a brand new book. All right. And that's really the best way to describe it. Forget a brand new chapter. I think, at this point, for people that really come out here and it's like a whole journey that, you're writing a whole brand new book. And a lot of people just, they refuse to even embrace that whole idea. They themselves, still, come out here and they think that, they're going to go back home at some point or what have you. I don't know what their thinking is, but it's not one that is, one for success. It's not a way of thinking that will, again, give them any kind of, success out here, in the sense that, look, simply all you want to do if you come out to Mexico to live in Mexico is that you want to be able to live, and live happily ever after, right? That's the idea. And if that's the case, well then, yeah, you know what I mean? You got to do a lot of soul searching and you got to do a lot of work so you can get to that spot, in order to really, be able to embrace what it is to live in Mexico, as opposed to struggle in Mexico and end up hating Mexico and end up leaving Mexico. So with all that being said, I know it was a big mouthful today. I really hope you guys enjoyed today's video. You guys enjoyed, driving around. I know there's a lot of new viewers out there, a lot of new subscribers. I see a lot of, people out there that are watching the videos and they're not subscribed yet. So I don't know what you're waiting for. This is a great time. If you enjoyed this show and you watch it all the way through, you're still here, might as well subscribe. It's the least you could do. At least leave a like. Maybe leave a comment. I love your comments. I love to talk to you guys, and I love, when you guys interact and help each other out and build a community, which is what I'm trying to do here by just, again, making these videos, giving you guys the truth, providing as much information as possible, helping, again, have a community, build a community so that you guys can also help each other out and, give information that I'm not providing or that I just don't have, but you guys have, and so on and so forth. So, with that being said, I really want to give a big thanks to all of you guys out there, all the new subscribers, all the old subscribers, everyone that's been here since day 1, day 0, whatever, yesterday, I don't know, subscribed an hour ago. Love you guys. Shout out to all of you guys. Really thankful to all you guys. Much appreciated to all you guys. And you already know, special thanks to all the patrons, all the members, every single one of you guys that asked me a question for me to answer on Thursday. Every single one of you guys that leaves a super chat, super thanks, whatever it is you do. Shout out to all of you guys. I really appreciate you guys. And, man, you guys are the best. And with all that being said, you already know the deal. All right, let's wrap this bad boy up. So with that said, you already know, if you enjoy this kind of content, don't forget to please like, please subscribe, please share, please hit the bell icon, but more importantly than anything else, please stay awesome. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye, guys.